Just moments ago, the man convicted of murdering his pregnant sister, her unborn child, and her husband at a Labor Day church cookout was sentenced. The judge sentenced 29-year-old Jason Iverson to life without parole on each count of murder.
I had no right to take your son. And you're right, that was a very cowardly way to handle my business. And I'm sorry that I did what I did that day. I'm truly sorry for taking Mercedes away from us. It hurts like hell knowing that she's gone. I destroyed the whole family that day. I did. And I deserve whatever punishment that's coming towards me.
3 shots inside a park bathroom. A man running out alone. Behind him, a family that will never be whole again. 9 minutes earlier, that man had hugged half the people at that picnic. By the time police caught him 2 blocks away on Auburn Avenue, his sister was dying, her husband was already gone, and her unborn daughter would never take a breath. This is the story of what happened at Stafford Park and why the person responsible was never a stranger. If cases like this matter to you, cases that never get the national coverage they deserve, subscribe now to MRCRIMEX. We tell the ones other channels skip. Cynthia Ivey raised 2 children who grew up close. Her daughter, Mercedes, and her son, Jason, weren't just siblings. They leaned on each other the way people do when family is the only constant. Whenever Jason hit a rough patch, Mercedes was the one who showed up. And Jason hit a lot of rough patches. He'd gone through a difficult divorce in 2018 and was raising 3 children in a custody arrangement that had never been easy. Court records and family accounts describe tension in that household going back years. Jason also carried a documented history of mental health struggles dating back over a decade, a detail that would matter a great deal later. Mercedes, meanwhile, had built a different kind of life. She worked as a licensed cosmetologist and makeup artist in the Cleveland area, known for showing up for other people's hardest days, weddings, funerals, everything in between. At 30 years old, she'd just married the love of her life and was a few months from becoming a mother herself. For most of their adult lives, the sibling dynamic held. Jason struggled, Mercedes answered. That pattern was about to break in a way nobody saw coming. In May of 2023, Jason's oldest son made a phone call late at night. He told his aunt that his father and his father's girlfriend were in a serious argument and that he didn't feel safe in the house with his younger siblings. Mercedes drove over that night and brought the 3 children back to her home to keep them safe until things settled down. Jason wanted them back immediately. He contacted police to have the children returned, but when officers reached out to the children's mother, she told them she wanted Mercedes to keep them, at least for now, for their own safety. That single decision, made by a woman trying to protect her nephew and nieces, became the fracture.
The blue, my son shows up, and as soon as he sees them, he's just like, he just goes off. So I don't know what he was doing before that got him so enraged, but he just wouldn't let up.
Point. Cynthia has said her son held on to something after that night and never let it go. She never detailed publicly what exactly consumed him, but the timeline lines up precisely with what prosecutors would later lay out in court. From that point forward, the sibling relationship changed. Arguments that used to feel like normal family friction started to feel heavier, more charged. Novelists noticed it. Nobody expected it to end in violence. While that tension simmered in the background, Mercedes was living what most people would call the best chapter of her life. She'd been with her partner, Trey Carter, who went by Norbert, or sometimes Trey, for years. Norbert worked for the U.S. Postal Service and ran his own podcast on the side. After 4 years together, he proposed, and she said yes. The two married in 2023. Not long after, they found out they were expecting their first child together, a daughter they'd already named Ava. Family described Norbert as someone thrilled to become a father, already planning the kind of dad he wanted to be. By late summer, Ava was due in a matter of months. Mercedes and Norbert were, by every account, inseparable, building a home, a business, and a family at the same time. None of it hinted at what was.
Judge, if you look at State's Exhibit 1, the individual in the orange shirt, that's the defendant, here, kind of the front of the screen. And this white vehicle up here is where the defendant's mom and his two other younger children. This vehicle here is where Mercedes, Jameer, and Norbert were.
Could you pause it? I'm familiar with the park. Is the park on the right or left?
So, and you'll see as the video goes on, Your Honor, that the park is, as I am facing it and you're facing the screen, to the left.
And then the main street is then beyond to the right.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Mercedes is backing out of her parking spot and the defendant is approaching her vehicle. He's banging out in front of the hood and she tries again to exit the park. And this is all after everyone left, after the defendant was trying to leave, after the defendant started in Hardness. You'll see Mercedes' vehicle go off screen now. And their mother's vehicle also goes off screen. And the defendant continues off screen to follow those vehicles, Your Honor.
The mother is the name?
Cynthia Ivey.
Sorry, thank you.
And now, off camera is when the defendant shoots at the vehicle, shooting his son and also shooting Mercedes. Here now, Your Honor, in the center kind of aisle where we just saw that car, you see Norbert Carter. He's coming, running from the defendant. He's between the vehicles. He has a phone. He's trying to get some help for his wife.
He's pointing out to you now.
He's right here, Judge, right in front of this white vehicle. You see the individual on the phone. And now you see Norbert start running. Here comes the defendant, chasing after him. He's got a gun in his hand. And Judge, I'm going to pause this right here. You see Norbert coming up into the area of the park. And as I included in my sentencing memorandum, as many of the individuals that have addressed the court noted, there's a large church picnic going on in the park at the time. So Norbert, when you look here, his options are a little bit limited. Straight ahead is a whole group of people that are here for the church picnic. You'll note that to the right in the video are two bouncy houses that are for kids, that kids are playing in. And then here to the left, this red building, those are restrooms. And Norbert runs to the left here, the defendant chases him, and he chases him into the restroom. At this point, this is where the defendant is shooting Norbert, and he shot a total of 12 times around. Here comes the defendant walking out of the restroom, and then he proceeds to retreat through the parking lot. And he was apprehended a short distance from the park by the Maple Heights Police Department.
Coming. September 4th, 2023. Cynthia was at Stafford Park in Maple Heights for a church picnic with several of her grandchildren. She'd asked Mercedes and Norbert to bring a stroller. They did. The park was full. A holiday, a church group's gathering, families spread out near a pavilion, kids in a bounce house nearby. Jason arrived separately. Witnesses say he greeted and hugged people at the picnic before he ever crossed paths with his sister. But according to police, the moment he spotted Mercedes and Norbert, that changed. Officers later said Jason had come to the park specifically to confront family members over a long-standing feud, and he began physically fighting with them almost immediately. Mercedes, Norbert, and Jason's 13-year-old son, who was in their care that day, decided they'd had enough and walked toward the parking lot to leave. Jason followed. In the parking lot, as the group tried to drive away, he opened fire. Mercedes was struck. So was his own son, grazed in the face. Norbert got out and ran toward the pavilion, then into a nearby restroom building, the only shelter he could find in that moment. Jason followed him inside. When he walked back out, both Mercedes and Norbert had been shot. Norbert was pronounced dead at the scene. Mercedes and her unborn daughter, 29 weeks along, were rushed to the hospital, where they were later pronounced dead as well. 3 lives ended in a matter of minutes in a public park in front of families who'd come only to celebrate a holiday. Jason fled the park on foot. Police caught up with him a short distance away on Auburn Avenue and took him into custody without further incident. Word spread through Maple Heights within hours. Neighbors near the park described pure chaos, people running from the scene, uncertain who'd been hurt or how badly. One resident later told reporters she watched elderly picnic-goers, some using canes and walkers, fleeing into her yard. Maple Heights City Councilman Stafford Lane publicly addressed the shooting in the days that followed, pushing back on any narrative that normalized the violence and calling instead for the community to prioritize safety and prevention. For a quiet suburb outside Cleveland, it became one of the most talked about cases the area had seen in years, not because the killer was a stranger, but because he wasn't. We're building out more cases like this every week, ones with real court records and real follow-through, not just headlines. If that's what you're here for, this is a good time to subscribe. Within days, the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office filed charges. Jason Iverson faced a 17-count indictment, 3 counts of aggravated murder, 5 counts of murder, 1 count of attempted murder, and 8 counts of felonious assault. The aggravated murder charges covering Mercedes, Norbert, and their unborn daughter, and the felonious assault charges tied to the injury his own son suffered. At his arraignment, Jason pleaded not guilty. His defense team signaled they intended to pursue a not guilty by reason of insanity argument, pointing to his documented mental health history, which included a diagnosis involving psychosis alongside anxiety and depression dating back to 2009. A trial was scheduled for late March 2024. Prosecutors prepared to call witnesses who'd been at the park that day, along with forensic evidence tying Jason directly to the shootings. But days before that trial was set to begin, Jason changed course. He withdrew his not guilty plea and pleaded guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of felonious assault. The insanity defense his attorneys had floated never made it in front of a jury. The case that seemed headed for a lengthy trial ended instead with an admission. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley said in a statement that Jason had violently gunned down his sister, her unborn child, and his brother-in-law at a church picnic, adding that the case represented a horrific level of violence that the plea would still hold him accountable for. A guilty plea meant no jury trial, but it didn't mean the case was over. Ohio law still required a sentencing hearing, and with it, a chance for the people left behind to speak directly to the man responsible.
I find myself in the unenviable position of being on both sides of the fence. I'm sorry for the pain that the Carters and the Turners are going through, and I'm sorry for what my family is going through. But my family loved Norb. Mercedes and Norb were the best looking couple. And they were looking forward to having their first child. I have no doubt that they would have been good parents because they were parents to everybody else's kids. Norb was thrilled to be a girl dad. He was looking forward to that so much. And I have no doubt that Ava would have had him wrapped around her little finger.
Cynthia took the stand first. She described feeling caught between two griefs at once, mourning a daughter she'd buried and a son she now visited behind bars. She told the court she barely recognized the person she saw in that courtroom, someone acting in a way she said she'd never witnessed from her son before that day. She spoke about the granddaughter she'd never get to hold, and about Norbert, whom she called devoted and someone who would have made a wonderful father. Jason's own son also addressed the court. He'd been present in the vehicle when the shooting began. Without repeating the specifics of what he witnessed, it's enough to say his statement centered on grief, guilt he shouldn't have had to carry, and the loss of two people who had been steady, caring presences in his life. He told the court he could no longer bring himself to call his father Dad. Norbert's mother spoke next.
I wake up tired. I know it's because of the energy I spent hating you. I know I will be forever tired because I will forever hate you. No, I don't forgive you.
Telling Jason directly that his actions had destroyed two families that day, hers and his own. Norbert's brother followed, describing a sibling bond he said he could never fully replace, and a grief that resurfaces every time he reaches for his phone out of habit, forgetting for a moment that the call can't go through anymore. Each statement was different, but they returned to the same point. A decision made in anger took 3 lives that should never have been in danger. Before sentencing, Jason addressed the court himself. He apologized to Norbert's family, calling his actions a cowardly way to handle a family dispute. He told his mother he didn't know how she or anyone in the family could ever forgive him. He said he could offer no real explanation for what happened, describing himself as someone who wasn't acting like himself that day, while still acknowledging that it was, in fact, him who pulled the trigger. Cuyahoga County Commonplace Judge Richard Bell delivered the sentence. He told the courtroom that lives had been taken and lives had been destroyed, and that anything less than the maximum penalty In the time since, Mercedes and Norbert's families have worked to keep their memory intact in ways that don't center on how they died. A scholarship was established in Norbert's name at his former high school, meant to support students the way he supported the people around him. Cynthia has spoken publicly about the particular weight of grieving both of her children at once. One she lost to violence, one she lost to a life sentence. She's described it as being caught on both sides of the same tragedy, unable to fully process one loss without confronting the other. It's a kind of grief that doesn't resolve into a clean before and after. It just continues on both sides of a family that used to be one. What makes this case difficult to sit with isn't the violence itself, it's the relationship underneath it. Mercedes spent years showing up for her brother without hesitation. That history didn't prevent what happened. If anything, the very decision that defined her, protecting 3 children who needed somewhere safe to go, became the thing her brother couldn't move past. There's no version of this story that ends with a clean answer. A guilty plea and a life sentence bring a legal conclusion, but they don't explain what changed in a person or undo what a family lost in a matter of minutes at a public park. If you want to understand cases like this, the real record, not just the headlines, that's exactly what we do here every week. Subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.